You guys ready for Erik? Erik! I called your name, so. You know how it works. Keep it in the stand. Stand close enough so they can hear you. You got it.
The very first time I went to New Orleans, I discovered that it was very famous for things like psychics and fortune tellers and voodoo. And now I'm always liking to try new and weird stuff. So I said, I'm gonna find me a fortune teller. Now, I don't really believe in that stuff. It was just for the experience. And I wanted a real exotic one. So I went to the most decadent source I could think of, Craigslist. And I scrolled around, and I noticed that most of them used tarot cards. But I wanted something more mystical, like a crystal ball or something. And I found one. Her name was the Divine Medea, and she used something called a spirit box. So I gave her a call, and she sounded perfect. She even had a Transylvanian accent. They don't let us do accents, but you can maybe envision it. And she said, I have the spirit box, and I can call up people from beyond the grave into this box, and they will tell you your fortune. I said, yeah, let's go with the spirit box. Oh, and then she said, and bring a raw egg with you, a white one. So that sounded weird, but I said, okay. We set the appointment. Later that day, I drove to a store and I bought a dozen eggs. They wouldn't let me buy just one. And I drove down and I wrapped up one of the eggs really carefully. And I drove down to the French Quarter and I found the Divine Medea. She's in this little broken down house. She's all dressed up like a gypsy, and she led me into this stuffy little room with a small round table. It was just like in the movies. And on the table, there was this little box and a bowl. Well, I gave her the money, and we sat down, and I asked the first question. I said, you know, I've been thinking of taking a trip to the Aztec region of Mexico, but I've heard it can be a little bit dangerous in places down. So I said, will I be safe if I go on this trip? And then this static noise starts coming out of the spirit box, kind of like a radio. And she says, oh, and she said, I have called up the spirit of Esmeralda. She said, Esmeralda says that you will be safe in Mexico, but only if, for an hour every day, you wear a sombrero. I said, what? I said, nobody wears sombreros anymore. I said, besides, they're kind of a stereotype. I said, could it just be like a fedora or something? She said, Esmeralda has spoken. Well, it sounded goofy to me, but I asked my next question. I said, you know, I've saved up a little money lately, and I want to invest it. Where should I invest? The static gets louder again. She says, oh, I have called up the spirit of Schultz. What kind of name for a spirit is Schultz? I'm hoping it's not that Schultz from Hogan's Heroes. And she says, Schultz says he sees a vast flock of blackbirds. Oh, wait, Now he sees a red bird flying above the blackbirds. He says that if you can capture that red bird, you will double your investment. I said, could Schultz be a bit more specific? She just says, Schultz has spoken. By now it's obvious this is a scam. She just leaves everything open to interpretation. And I was getting disillusioned. Then she said, produce the egg. I'd forgotten about the egg. So I gently gave it to her. She got it and she stood up and she slowly spun around the room, and I noticed she slipped it under her gown once and back out. Then she sat down and cracked the egg open into that bowl. And she said, oh my God. And I looked, there's this ugly brown splotch right in the yolk. And she said, that means you're in danger of getting a dread disease. And then she pulls out this little bottle of potion. She said, you must pour this in your bath and bathe in it. Otherwise, you could get that disease. I'm looking at the bottle. It's got the price tag right on it, $100. So now, this had gone too far. So I just stood up and I bid farewell to the divine Medea. At my hotel that night, I went to the candy machine for a Snickers bar. And I noticed this red color above my head, kind of like a red bird. I looked up, and it was the row of Kit Kat bars on top. Now, I never get a Kit Kat, but for some reason, I pushed the Kit Kat button. It went plop, plop. I doubled my investment.